Hi, my name is Hannah Herbst. I'm one of the inventors of AutoTQ, the automatic tourniquet designed to stop bleeding from arms and legs in seconds. One of the most common questions I get is, how do I know if a tourniquet is effectively and safely stopping blood flow? A tourniquet is a 2,000-year-old compression device that's placed above a site of bleeding on an arm or a leg and applies pressure around the surface of the limb, therefore compressing arteries and veins and stopping blood flow. Tourniquet pressure is measured the same way your doctor takes your blood pressure, in a unit of measure called millimeters of mercury. You can think of millimeters of mercury as a measurement of how tightly a tourniquet is squeezing a limb. There are two main types of tourniquets, windlass and pneumatic. Windlass tourniquets require a user to tighten it above a site of bleeding and twist a rod in a 360-degree circle until the bleeding stops. Windlass tourniquets are typically 2 inches wide or narrower, meaning they're considered more of a narrow tourniquet. Windlass tourniquets tighten to different pressures depending on the operator. Pneumatic tourniquets, on the other hand, are typically operated using air pressure, just like a blood pressure cuff. Air is inserted into the cuff and then tightened enough to stop bleeding. The pressure for a pneumatic tourniquet is usually either preset or customized based on a patient's systolic blood pressure. Pneumatic tourniquets typically have a much wider cuff than windlass tourniquets, so they can be applied at lower pressures. Both windlass and pneumatic tourniquets have pros and cons, but today I want to focus on pressure and why it matters for tourniquets. All of the research and citations I refer to today will be in the caption of this video. One of the most important things we know from decades of tourniquet research is this: the narrower the tourniquet cuff, the higher the pressure required to control bleeding. The wider the tourniquet cuff, the lower the pressure required to control bleeding. Researchers like Dr. John Craig, Dr. Piper Wall, and Dr. James McEwen have shown this relationship in studies. Tourniquets often get a bad reputation for causing damage below the tourniquet line. This is often due to narrow tourniquets applying excessive pressure. Here's a visual graphic that shows the differences between different types of tourniquets when it relates to pressure by McEwen and Casey. Images B and C show manual tourniquets, which are associated with very high effective pressure gradients and very narrow cuff widths. Image A shows a pneumatic tourniquet with a wide width and a low corresponding pressure gradient. We can see in this study that narrow tourniquet cuffs increase tourniquet minimum effective pressure significantly, while wider cuffs reduce the minimum effective pressure, making it much safer. When we were developing AutoTQ, our goal was to combine the ruggedness of the windlass tourniquet with the precision and safety of a pneumatic tourniquet. We collaborated with physicians, paramedics, nurses, and more who are experts in tourniquet application and use tourniquets a lot. The request I heard from these experts over and over again was to make sure that AutoTQ has a wide cuff because it's much safer for patients and can be applied with much more precision. We took their advice to heart. AutoTQ's arm cuff is 3 inches, or about 7.62 centimeters wide, and the leg cuff is nearly 4 inches, or about 10.16 centimeters wide. To use AutoTQ, operators simply power it on, tighten it above a bleed, and press inflate. Optionally, they can listen to the audio instructions, which will prompt them through these steps as well. When you press inflate, AutoTQ tightens to a minimum effective pressure. This pressure number was set by collaborating with many experts, like I just mentioned, reviewing decades of literature, and lots of thorough testing. AutoTQ's first pressure amount is 300 millimeters of mercury, which is enough to stop most people's bleeds. If more pressure is needed for any reason, typically because AutoTQ wasn't initially applied tight enough, AutoTQ keeps inflating up to 600 millimeters of mercury. This allows flexibility without overshooting by default. To determine that AutoTQ's pressure was effective, we use a device called a Doppler. A Doppler is used as the industry standard for testing if a tourniquet works on a human arm or a human leg. The Doppler measures the pressure below the tourniquet line of the blood pulsing through the artery. In our testing, we typically observe arterial occlusion at or below 300 millimeters of mercury, which is consistent with what the literature predicts for wider tourniquet cuffs. For example, in this video, we place AutoTQ high up on the arm or the leg. The Doppler probe is placed on the inguinal artery on the arm and the popliteal artery on the leg. To observe the Doppler in action, take a look at the screen. You'll see lines going up and down, which is the blood pulsing through the artery. And that audio you hear that sounds like a heartbeat is the blood pulsing through the artery. After you press inflate, AutoTQ is pressurizing the cuff. At first, you'll see the screen may pick up a bit because AutoTQ is forcing blood away from the tourniquet line. But after just a few moments of inflation, the Doppler slows and stops altogether, meaning that AutoTQ has stopped the bleeding. We would love for you to review our full study and results at theautotq.com/research. 4 years ago, AutoTQ was just an idea to make tourniquet application simpler and safer. Now AutoTQ stops bleeds in seconds and is used all over the United States. If you'd like to learn more about tourniquets and our journey to develop AutoTQ, visit our website at theautotq.com. We would love to meet you.